right, everybody, welcome to Cine-MANIACS. Hello, Maniacs. What's happening?
I'm loving life.
What kind of Cine-MANIACs are we?
Yeah, you kind of Cine-MANIACs.
Cine-MANIACs.
I love it. I hope that sticks. We gotta keep that going.
Merch.
Yeah. So here we are. We're about to review another Indian film. Sean will introduce it in a second, and then we're going to spin another wheel. Just so everybody's clear, the wheel, we've decided to put movies that are available on Netflix or Amazon Prime for us so that we can definitely watch them.
And subtitled.
And there's still a lot of them, and they're subtitled. There's still a ton on there, so
and again, this one came highly recommended by a lot of people.
Which one? The one we're doing right now?
Yes,
Gangs of Wasseypur.
Yeah, it was recommended by 4 or maybe even 5 people. Every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes, you're right about
Even
that.
on our other podcast, the Yippee-Ki-Yay
The ones that got nothing to do
Holiday
with
Edition,
films.
this one keeps getting recommended. So, Sean, what's the film?
The film is Gangs of Wasseypur Part 1. And I'm just going to say, there is a Part 2. It is really one movie.
Yep.
It was originally released at nearly 6 hours long.
Wow.
And they broke it into 2 parts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This is the Indian Godfather. So this is a film that takes place over 70 years. It's a crime. It's a story of a family. It's an organized crime. The family began with the patriarch named Sadid Khan, and he was a criminal, and he went to a new town where he became an enforcer for a mine, a coal mine, and the owner of the coal mine becomes a gangster and a union organizer, and he's afraid that Sadid Khan is going to take his position, so he has him killed. But his son escapes. His son, who is a child, Sardar Khan, escapes, and Sardar Khan grows up with one goal in his life, is to kill the man who killed his father. But he just doesn't want to kill him. He wants to take everything from him.
Piece
by piece.
Right.
He wants to dismantle him piece by piece and take over. But he kind of has a messy life. He's married to one woman with whom he has 3 kids. The people in the film, most of them are Muslims in this film, as opposed to most of the people we see in our films are Hindus. And he brings in a mistress who he has 1 child with. And, and the kids, the 4 children he has, will ultimately take over for the final years of the saga, So there are spoilers, right?
Yes.
We're definitely spoiling
Yes, there will be spoilers. It's 2012 movie, right?
No.
Yeah.
So.
Even if you spoiled it, I still wouldn't understand it, but go ahead.
Yeah. So it basically, part 1 of the film shows, the father's career and his death and the rise of his son, Sardar Khan, to being one of the top gangsters in the poor Wasseypur area of India. And this film ends with Sardar's death.
Okay, so you've seen part 2, so obviously you're telling us he dies.
Oops, that's right.
Yeah. Because I was wondering.
That's a big spoiler for us. We haven't seen part 2.
That's why I wanted to see part 2. Okay.
Wow.
I have one question. So the first father, the first person, is the long-haired guy who has that fight with the rocks and everything and he worked in the coal mine, and his wife died in childbirth, and that's his son, right?
Yeah.
And that's the son that we're following, who then has more sons with multiple wives.
Right.
Okay. I got that straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
by the way, Sean and I are wearing scarves because that looks super cool in the movie when these guys are walking around in scarves. I just thought that.
Well, why don't you take your hat off, Ralph?
I don't want to.
That's more appropriate for the lead
character. I don't have good flowing Indian hair.
He doesn't have it, and he wouldn't grow his hair back till the guy was dead.
Yeah, but he never got that chance, did he? He never grew it back.
And
now that I know he died. Ugh.
Yeah, the lead actor in the film has his head shaved, and he's going to keep his head shaved until he has revenge. But it's really not just those 2. It's really about 3 different sets of gangs. It's the gangs of Wasseypur. There's the Sardar Khan gang, which is our hero. They're our, crime family. And there's a rival Muslim group called the Qism or something.
The Qureshis.
Yeah,
Qureshis?
and they are essentially the town butchers.
Oh, yeah.
And they chop. So they mainly will fight you with.
Well, can you clear one thing up for me? The start of the movie starts with somebody attacking a village, right?
Yeah.
Who is that group that goes to blow up the castle? They keep throwing bombs in there. Who is that?
You have to watch the second movie.
That's the second group, the other Muslims.
They have nothing to do with the story.
They're the Muslims that he later that he battles, the butchers.
Okay.
They're the butchers, and they're going after the home of Sadr's son.
Faisal. It's Faisal's home, right?
Faisal's home, yes.
Ah, okay.
And I just want to tell you.
Wait, can I ask you a question? Who's seen part 2 here?
I have.
Oh, so both of you have. All right, so let's not spoil part 2 for the people who haven't seen it.
I thought we were supposed to watch both.
We were supposed to watch both of them.
I just want to tell you something. I am a cheap bastard. You all know that. I always object when we have to pay to see a movie.
Yes.
But I got to say, I did immediately pay and watch part 2 when I watched part 1.
Oh, wow.
Do we want to get into the review, or is there some more parts of it we want to talk about?
I have a couple. I think you've answered we're rooting. Yeah. Okay. So it is rooting like for the Corleones, who are a nasty group of Italian Americans, but we're rooting. They're our heroes. Same thing as this guy, this family. I mean, he's a jerk. I mean, he's the way he attacks women, and everybody's slapping kids in this one. Even the mother's slapping the kid, and so that's a whole crime family. They end up all living together. I get it. They're all in the same house, and they're all.
Yeah.
So start reviewing. Go ahead. I mean, I guess we've recapped it. John, do you understand it?
Somebody wrote in the comments. Apparently, people understand me now in the few shows that we've done, and they said I probably would not like this movie because there's a lot of F-bombs in it. This is the most swearing I've seen in any Indian movie.
Particularly in the songs.
There are things about the movie I liked, but overall, I did not like this movie. I found it to be a hard movie to get through, and I certainly wouldn't have gotten through it if it was the full 5.5 hour, whatever it was.
I disagree. You would like the second half better.
Well, I look at Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1, so maybe I would. But this was just, it was too confusing about who was who and what was happening when they kept switching time frames. I just found it too hard to follow, and I haven't had that kind of problem in some of the other movies. I also felt that the original father, the muscle guy in the beginning who gets killed. And what Sean, one thing wasn't clear. When the guy went to kill him in the very beginning, he also sent guys to kill his son.
Yes.
And I think his brother or cousin, someone took the son away before they could kill him.
So and he lied to the boss saying, I got him, I killed him, I buried him. And that ends up
someone else lied, not the guy that got rid of.
No. His henchman lied, said he
But the reason why he got caught was because the guy who ordered the death left his umbrella with his initials. And that's something the son kept throughout his life. That's just one little thing. So I found that to be a little confusing. The other thing, look, this was as close to a Godfather ripoff as you can get, especially the last scene with him, the way he died. I mean, that was right out of The Godfather.
Or almost dies.
Almost died.
Yeah, sure.
But I found, unlike other Indian movies that I've seen, I found the actor who played Khan the least charismatic out of them all. I didn't find okay, thank you. Charismatic. I just didn't think I thought his father, I was more interested in his father.
Oh, yeah, the first guy was
he was great.
Yeah.
Then when they killed him, I just wasn't impressed
You
with
liked
the guy.
his hair. I get it.
I was going to just ask you, because this is our first Indian protagonist who doesn't have amazing hair.
Yeah, I was shocked at that. And that must have been a big deal. I mean, he made a big deal out of it that he's not going to grow his hair till he gets his revenge. So that's a big thing in the Indian culture, the hair. So for that actor not to have that hair, I was very disappointed by that. And that porn mustache that he had, I didn't like either. But yeah, this was not one. I kind of, you know how Chris talked about Three Idiots and his reaction to it? This was a slog for me, and it was tough to get through. Now, I will say, the last half hour or so, I got a little more engaged in it, but I was very confused by this movie and what was happening, and that kind of affected how I watched it because I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And maybe I missed something and I'm just not attentive enough, but that's kind of how this was the first movie that I really wasn't crazy about that we've watched.
That's funny because John called me in the middle of me watching this one, and he said the funniest thing, which is 100% right. I don't know if this is crap or a classic, but it's something. And I felt the same way. I'm leaning more towards classic as it got rolling on because I was getting all the Goodfella vibes, the Godfather vibe, Joe
Once
Pesci
Upon a Time
vibes,
in America,
all of that. The two buddies that kind of control everything and how loyal everybody is, and that guy may not have had a big head of hair, but he was still powerful and charismatic as far as I was concerned.
Yeah,
the way he just sat around and smiled, and all the things. Anyway,
how about when he romanced his second wife?
that was beautiful.
with that
was
sexy
so touching.
back, that
Yeah.
sexy back.
She did have that.
Oh,
Her back was nice. That was
Yeah.
smoking.
Listen, I don't want to hog it, Chris. Let's Chris say something up front here.
I really like this film. It was really different from all the other ones we've seen
That's
in
true.
the sense that it's much grittier, right? In the kind of historical fantasy movies we've seen so far, if you want to call them that. They're beautiful, but there's obviously an unreality to them. This was really gritty. It was down and dirty, and I really like that about it.
But still mythical. It's still not based in it's still a lot of myth and kind of unrealistic things that happen. And
I actually looked to see if any of this was based on reality.
Well, it's as
You know what
mythical
I
as The
mean?
Godfather. I mean,
No, it's based on some real stuff, like the assassination at the possible assassination at the gas station. People in the region will swear that really happened, and then there's other stuff that's totally invented. But it's not. I think it's probably like The Wire. And then if you know what you're looking for, you'd say, oh, okay, that character is based on a Barksdale, the real Barksdale, stuff like that. So I think that's there, but I think they do a lot of what they want with the history, which is the right way to go. You're telling a movie story, not a documentary.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought it was really, like I said, I like the kind of the grittiness of it. I like the fact that, some of the people were super good looking. Not everybody was. They felt very realistic to me. I feel like this is one of those movies that is akin to like an American film where you watch it and you go, it's got all these great character actors in it. I'm sure that half the people in that film are famous character actors in India, but they're not pinups. They're not probably shooting Gucci ads on the side. You know what I mean? And while I'm sure many of the people in the other films we have are, but I also like that because it also deals with kind of a level of, that really kind of lower socioeconomic class in India. And I'm fascinated by that about, people put into very tough situations, doing what they have to do to survive. Because you have the very first father, right? He's working in the mine and he's unbelievably strong and he's not going to be pushed around. But when given the opportunity to become the muscle man, which I thought was kind of funny, that's the way that's translated as tough guy, muscle man, hired gun, whatever. He takes that because he decides, you know what, I can move up that way. I can become, I have to look out for my son.
and he turns on his own people.
Yeah, and all these people that he was with in the mines, there's he changes. He was obviously before he was robbing the train for food and things like that. But you never got the vibe that he was like this. You almost got a little bit of a Robin Hoodie vibe from him at that point. That he was doing this thing, and even though some people say no, that's my train to rob. He's like, whatever, everything's going to be fine. And then it turns out to not be fine. And that changes him. And then, of course, I did really like the fact that they brought the same guy with the glasses with the pistol.
That first scene with that guy was just beautiful. I mean, he got killed, but staging that thing was just terrific.
Yeah, really. And just really well made. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed kind of the grittiness of it. I think it's an extremely ambitious movie in the sense that, you're talking about multiple generations, and how they're really, they've already set up Sadir Khan's children. They're already setting them up. They're already getting into adulthood, and some of them are getting married, and how they're setting that up for the second half, which I haven't seen yet. But
Yeah, then the brother said, if you marry him, I'm going to shoot you.
Yes. Yeah, that was pretty heavy duty, but
She married him anyway.
she did. Really just all around solid family crime movie. Also liked all of the different differences. They're like, oh, they're wetting down the coal because it absorbs water and things like that. And also they're like, you know what? Coal is kind of done. We're going to take over this pond and we're going to tax all the fishing guys, and things like that. Extortion.
That's right. They're going to extortion.
They're going to go into extortion. It's like,
it's a new innovation.
Exactly. The oldest, one of the older ones, but just all of those elements came together. I thought the acting was really great. Very naturalistic. I felt like I got what they were going through, or maybe not going through, but you know what I mean? I thought everybody in it was a fine actor. And, one of the weird things I will say though, did you guys notice that Amazon said that this was like a comedy?
Yeah.
Did they?
I did see that. Yeah.
The listing comedy. There was all kinds of.
There are laughs
comedy,
in it, but I
crime, or
wouldn't call
something.
it comedy.
There were funny things in it. Every time they shot the gun,
that I
and
thought was funny, or could be, maybe this is what makes it a comedy, and maybe our listeners can, or our viewers can help us out here, is that I did find all of the lyrics to the songs that were going on, because there was a lot of popular songs.
Spot on, right on the nose.
But also, but goofily kind of funny, because they were so some of them were like these love songs, and some of them were like really raunchy and things like that. So I wasn't sure if that's why some people might look at this and say, oh, that's a pretty funny movie, because they take the songs and they use the songs directly as kind of, to make light of kind of some of the horrors that are going on screen. And kind of
also all those songs are famous Bollywood songs that Indian audiences are going to recognize. I mean, I don't have that in my viewing history, so I wouldn't recognize it. But that's a whole other level of just the musical choices that we just don't get that.
Sure.
So
plus the other thing was, I wondered if in the very opening how they have that that soap opera. Where they're watching
where it
soap
starts
opera
on the TV.
and then the bullets shoot everywhere.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like a real soap opera, kind of akin to
sure it is.
Sands Through the Hourglass or The Days of Our Lives. That's a joke that we're all going to get, even though we may never have seen it. It's in the popular culture here. And I wondered if it was kind of something, when I watched that sequence, I wondered if that was akin to something like Days of Our Lives here in the United States.
Oh, I'm sure they lay pop culture in all there. Even the movie they watched, probably that movie, the theater, when they're in the movie theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the woman goes back in to watch it, or tries to go back in to watch it again. So I'm sure we're missing a lot of that. But again, it's all pop culture.
Part 2 has a lot of movie references in it. And the one guy, the main rival gangster, says most people fail because they watch movies and they become heroes in their own mind, of their own movies in their own mind. And he never went to the movies. That's why he's successful. But I'll tell you what, I will admit, this film was a very slow start for me. I mean, the opening attack was very intense, but then they jump back in time, and it's sort of like a history lesson too, in a history of the crime, and it didn't seem like it was going anywhere. It's like, it seemed to be as much, because I was expecting a real gritty gangster movie, and it's more about him being, getting his wives not having sex with him when they're pregnant, and, his problems at home. But, what made The Godfather so special ultimately was that it wasn't a gangster movie. It was a movie about a family. And although they were criminals and evil people, they were the least evil people. And it was a family trying to survive. And it wasn't until the kids got older and started participating with their father that I really started to get that vibe. And I'm like, oh, this is why they've spent 30% of the film with him and his wives. And, and the wives are a very big factor in this movie, and the kids, because his second wife, the Hindu wife, sets him up, and
is one of his children.
Yeah,
The Fredo. He was the Fredo of the Michael. Faisal's Michael, and Fredo was the guy with the beard.
Yeah.
So, that actor that played Faisal,
is
that his name, Faisal?
Yeah.
I was getting Al Pacino vibes from that guy. And then, of course, the assassination attempt at the gas station is a toll booth. I mean,
And the fruit falling on the fruit thing.
yeah, it's yeah. Hey, Drew, go ahead. Let's hear Drew, and then we can rate this thing.
Well, first, I was relieved that this was better than the Gangs of movie that almost turned me off of gangster movies for a long time, which was Gangs of New York.
Yeah,
That's much better than that movie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought the way they set this movie up was very interesting because I don't know that much about the Dhanbad region where Wasseypur is, and I know it's coal from this movie, and it is actually got a lot of organized crime. But I like how right at the beginning there's some setup that I think this is the first movie that we've watched where the main characters are almost all Muslim.
Yeah.
In Padmavata is there Muslim versus Hindi, and then we've watched a lot of movies with Hindi characters. But I think I like how it was clear from the beginning they are Muslims, but he said they're all Sunnis. It's not Shias versus Sunnis, so it's very clear this is not about. They aren't fighting because of religion. They aren't fighting because of nationalism. They aren't fighting because of ethnicity. Those things do come into play, but I thought that was really an interesting way to set up the movie. And then I was watching the movie and noticing all the songs and movies and saying, man, I wish I knew more about what that was, because there's a whole layer of meaning that I'm not getting out of it. And probably, as we said, some of that is funny, but I liked the movie a lot because it is a history story. I mean, it's 70 years of Indian history and of this family. And yes, the second half is also, it's great. And it's a lot crazier kind of, but
And more violent too.
It's definitely more violent and full on bloody and what you would expect. It's if this half is Godfather, the second half is not Godfather, but there's more Scarface in it as well.
Yeah.
And I think there were little things in the movie that I noticed that I thought were really interesting. When we saw RRR, I don't know if you remember. I mean, you should, because every frame should be burned into your mind with love. But the scene where they rescue the kid on the bridge, and there's a flag that Ram Charan is holding that he uses, and he gives it to Beam to wrap around himself in the fire. And that's a Vande Mataram flag, which is an Indian revolutionary slogan, song, and poem. And Muslims don't say that, because Vande Mataram is a phrase that refers to India as it deifies the country as a goddess, and Muslims, they can't have anybody other than Allah, so they don't say that. And the goddess that is the goddess of India is Durga, and Durga is the Hindi wife of Sardar Khan, who is his destruction. I don't know exactly what that means, but I thought that was really interesting that there's all these other levels of things going on. And if I'm saying something out of turn, I'm not trying to start an international incident, but if people have insight into that in the comments, I would really be interested in hearing that. And the other thing, this movie reminded me of another movie that I haven't seen in a long time that I want to see again. I don't know if you guys saw City of God, which was the Brazilian movie from about 20 years ago, which is a gangster movie set in the favelas of Brazil. And it is like this. It takes this genre, and for me, it introduces me to this whole world that I don't know anything about. A City of God is like a whole other level of filmmaking, but it is intense and gritty and terrifying and very violent. And I like the way that people take things like the gangster genre. You just say that's kind of tired. I mean, you could name a lot of movies that are fantastic gangster movies, but they go back 70 years. There's lots of great gangster movies from the 50s and the 70s, and there's Goodfellas and stuff. And this was, I think, very refreshing because it was in a place that I didn't know. And it was also a whole world of people and geography and everything that I didn't recognize and that I learned about. But I also recognized everything that everybody was doing. I recognized the crimes that they were building their empires on. I recognized the egos. I recognized everything. And I really like the way that the movie kind of plays with your expectations. It plays with the formula. This guy says, I'm going to devote my whole life. I'm not going to cut my hair until I get my revenge. Then he kind of doesn't really make that a focus. And then he never gets his revenge. So it's kind of interesting to see the turns that it takes. And I know it feels like one movie. that's a natural break where the assassination attempt at the gas station is, but it feels like one movie, and the second half is really just a scythe through all these characters, and I liked it more than I thought I would.
I appreciate you keep calling it an assassination attempt. Thank you for that, because
You're welcome.
it's the only reason I wanted to watch part 2.
Oh no, there's so many reasons you should watch part 2. It's really great.
Okay.
But I think I want to thank the people who recommended it, because this was recommended very heartily and frequently.
Yeah.
And I get it. And I also learned that this movie was not successful when it first came out. And that's always interesting when movies don't find an audience and then later they find an audience. And I did some reading about it, and apparently this was seen as a movie that may have been like, this is the movie that's going to break out internationally. And it took another 10 years for RRR to be that movie, which is a very different movie. So that was also kind of neat to learn about. So,
Well, this movie might have, if they'd have brought it all in the entire story in 2.5 hours. I just feel this was as I said, it was very slow in the beginning until the family dynamics began. And all this stuff, these dynamics set up, play out in the part 2. But, I really enjoyed this film. Soon, it was hard getting through the first half. But but as soon as this movie was over, I immediately clicked on part 2. Paid another $3.99 for it.
Yeah, it's funny you say first half, because that's an hour and a half, which is a normal film,
Normal movie.
normal length film. Wait,
what's an hour and a half?
The first half of the first film.
The first half of the first film.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, gotcha.
Yeah. I can't get caught up in the history and trying to keep up with, the Muslims versus this and that and all the symbolism and I can only treat it as a film and whether I like the film or not. And for the most part, like Sean was saying, the slow build up to this thing took a long time. I'm just trying to figure out the kind of vignette. It's very vignette the way they bounce around.
Sure.
And set things up. And there's just tremendous stabbings that go on and gunshots and all kinds of, I don't mean tremendous in a good way, but I mean just in your face. You're not seeing anything, but you're hearing a lot. You're hearing a lot of that.
Literally a lot of slapping in your face.
Yeah, a lot of slapping, a lot of, and there's more. This is more in your face sexuality, and than I've seen in a lot of these films. I mean, he the way he, what do you call it when he met that woman on the with the woman with the back, great back by the way. I like the back.
The maid, Durga, yeah,
the
Hindi maid.
The way he serenaded her and was able to get her pregnant and all that. I just found it in your face, but I'll have to say that as the movie, the last 45 minutes of this film, when I met Faisal, and Faisal does that thing on the train where he puts his stuff up in the train after being in prison, and he scratched his name both in the gun, which signaled him for the other guy, and that was the same guy. That was not the guy's son. That was the same dude, right?
Right. Because they put gray in his hair.
Right. And the glasses were a little bigger or something. And he got his revenge on that guy. And then I love the train. He scratched the name on the side of the train so he knew which car it was, all that stuff. So I got into it and I started really catching up on the Godfather references and the Goodfellas. And then when that assassination attempt happened, now I said, Jesus, now I have to watch the second half. And I called John immediately, said, we got to do a trailer. A review of the trailer, or what do we call it? Reaction on the trailer. And then I want to watch the second one, whether we spin it or not, because I want to know what happens. Mostly to the sons, the Faisal and
because we know what happens to him.
Yeah,
we know what happens to him.
But he wasn't in that. But he wasn't.
No. The main guy. Sean told us what happened.
Our guy, the protagonist, the guy, the no hair guy.
Yeah.
Well, that was
we don't.
Mystery takeaway right away.
Well, so anyway, it is a generational story told across this family and everything. But one thing I did appreciate about that is they didn't jump around a lot. Like it started in the early 2000s, but it's not like we're in the 40s, we're in the 60s, we're back in the 50s, we're in the 80s.
Well, they kept throwing dates up as if the dates were supposed to mean something. I'm
sure they do mean something, especially around the independence of India in 1947 and the way that changed everything. And it's like, oh, we're going to be free. No, just kidding. There are,
but they had 79 and 85 popped up, and I think it's
references that we don't necessarily
right. But again, as a film, I finally got in. It took me a long when John called me. I think I had I forget I told you. I think I had another hour left or something, and you had been past that. You had seen Faisal do all this stuff, and you said stick with it because it's worth it, and you were right. I mean, it did make me want to go and watch. Although the one mystery of the second film is now gone for me, but I want to see what happens to the other.
Yeah, I
people
absolutely
too,
want to watch the second one because I want to know what his fate was.
Right.
And now that it's been spoiled, I don't have to watch it now. So
We said spoilers were okay.
for
not
number
for the
one.
second movie.
For one.
Not for the
Wow.
second one, not for the sequel.
All right, so I have one thing to say. Zooby do or Zooby don't. So what is it? Sean.
Zooby Doo. Thanks for the recommendation on this. Really enjoyed it.
John.
I want to thank my audience for knowing who I am. I give this a Zooby don't.
Wow. Chris.
I can't give a Zooby Doo for the last 45 minutes. It's a 2 hour and 45-minute film. So
I mean,
that's
were
why I
you
can't
really
recommend it.
offended by the F words and stuff in the subtitles?
No.
That's-
It was just shocking because we haven't seen anything
No,
like
it's
that.
way
in any of the
raunchier
movies
than
we've
most.
seen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
so that's
For
the only
sure.
reason why.
Chris.
Zooby Doo, like no question about it.
Chris, smile when you say that. Smile when you say that. Smile, Doobie Doo.
And Drew. Drew will say Zooby Doo. That rhymes.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Drew.
Zooby Doo. It's worth watching, and I'm sorry that the reason that you wanted to watch the second one has been a bit tainted. But
I'll say.
But
I really
will
thought
tell
that
you,
guy was going to make it.
Those answers come very early in the film, and there's a lot more film.
Well, would you say the second part is better than the first?
I don't think it's better. I think it's different, but I think it really plays like a 5.5 hour movie. Like I wouldn't want to watch this movie and then say I won't bother watching the second one, and that watching the second one has a lot of similar things in it. I mean, there's a lot of life cycle things, a lot of weddings, a lot of funerals, things like that, which I also thought was interesting. And you see time pass through the music that we don't recognize, but through the fashion. I mean, Faisal's collars are spectacular.
Yeah.
But
oh my God, yeah.
I think it's 100% worth watching it because the way it all fits together is very satisfying, and it's good storytelling.
Well, Ralph, you
watch
watch
it,
it. Let me
too.
know what you think.
I also think you should
too.
watch Bahubali too if you haven't seen it.
I have not seen that.
Also, too, there's less exposition because you already know who the characters are.
Is there more back?
Yeah, but
Yes.
still 2.5 hours long, right?
Yes.
3 hours long.
Yeah.
It's another
See,
2 hours and 40
okay,
minutes.
so I
or
mean, they
whatever.
don't need
But it's-
exposition in these films. They just say everything. It's all right there. It's all on the screen. I'm not talking
It
money
is
this
all
time.
on the screen.
All the story.
By the way, Debbie's not with us tonight. She's not feeling well. She wanted to be here. I think she loved this film. I think Sean mentioned it at the beginning, but she couldn't be here. She's not feeling well, so we're just going with 5. So Debbie, we miss you. I'm sure everybody, our fans miss you. In fact, if you miss her, please subscribe. Hit the notification button.
That is
smash the
just
like button.
crass.
Draw her
That is
back in.
crass. All right, so let's
Debbie would want you to do that.
let's hit the spin here.
Spin the wheel, the Cine-MANIAC wheel,
the wheel
of movies.
You guys
Here we
seeing
go.
the wheel here?
Anything I think we could pronounce everything on here.
Let's go. We're not only going to pronounce
Oh, wait,
the one that wins.
Where is it? Where is it?
It's Kasari. Is that how you say that?
Yes.
Okay, does anyone know anything about that movie?
Yes, I happen to know about it. This was something people have been recommending. I looked it up on. It's about a battle, I think, on the Indian-Afghan border where, like 40 Indian soldiers held off 10,000 Afghanistan. Sort of
What's
like
about
Zulu.
the Sikh? It's like 300. The Sikh, a very small number
Okay,
of Sikh
historical
soldiers.
drama.
Yeah, set in
1897.
1897.
Any comedy in this one? Do we know?
I'm sure there will be.
It seems unlikely.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know,
Will it be a
maybe.
musical number?
Maybe
I mean,
when
was
people
300
are
funny?
beheaded.
I guess this will be funny.
300 was
funny.
funny, actually.
300 was fun.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I don't think this will be like.
I would
Wow.
expect some slow motion.
Okay.
Yes, I
One
will
other thing
say.
I want to say to our viewers out there, RRR just hit 30,000 views, so thank you so much. We really appreciate it because that's really what got this whole thing rolling with you guys. So we appreciate you guys watching and all the comments. The comments are great. And feel free, if you want to list all the movies that we should ever watch, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Not that I have to tell you because you're already doing that.
What was
Well,
the last
since
one?
you mentioned-
190?
190
You
somebody
mentioned,
beat you.
Well, I will
since you mentioned
say,
RRR.
Yeah.
Ram Charan, one of the two leads of RRR, the actor is having a baby. So we're excited for him because he has given me so much entertainment with this movie. So it's nice to see.
You notice all the
them get
reviews
recognized
popping
for it.
up on YouTube for that movie? Everybody's reviewing it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's a good one. That's why.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, have a good week. Safe holiday.
Have a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah.
Because
Thank you.
Whatever
it's
else,
this weekend.
Kwanzaa, whatever
So
else is out
enjoy
there.
it.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Everybody.